How do you build a high-performing culture? This is Culture Architects. Candid conversations with extraordinary leaders sharing their biggest successes, failures, and lessons learned on their culture journeys. Here's David J. Friedman.
So today on Culture Architects, we're joined by Mark Skogen. Mark is the president and the CEO of Festival Foods. Mark's family has been in the supermarket business for a long time, since actually 1946, believe it or not. And Mark himself is a third-generation grocer. He joined Festival Foods full-time in 1992, and then he became CEO in 2006. And it was under his leadership that the company adopted what they call their Boomerang Basics, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Today, there's over 40 full-service Festival Foods supermarkets across the state of Wisconsin, and with their Boomerang Basics as their guide, it's really no surprise that both the company and its leader, Mark, have been recognized repeatedly for their growth, innovation, and of course, for their culture. Mark, welcome to Culture Architects Podcast.
All right, great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So for our audience sake, let's get a little bit of family history here. I mean, you have such an interesting family, and the story of how you got to where you are is so fascinating. So bring us back to, the beginnings of Festival Foods and your family's entry into the grocery business.
Sure. Back in 1946, my grandma and grandpa had a small store, about 3,000 square feet. Back in those days, that's kind of how grocery stores were. There were many of them. They were just small. And the story goes that my dad and my two uncles and my grandma and grandpa all lived in a house that was connected to the grocery store. So they could open a door from their kitchen and go right into the grocery store. Wow. And they tell the stories about how they would dribble basketballs in the store and throw footballs around. So it was truly a connected way of life. Some years after my dad was, through high school and things, he started to grow the business and created our Skogen's IGA stores. And I think we had up to 5 or 6 of them at some point before the whole festival format came to us. At that time, our wholesaler was Gateway Foods. And they said, hey, we got this concept that we're going to franchise, and it's called Festival Foods. The idea behind the name Festival was there was going to be a festival in store each week, some sort of celebration of food and tastings and so on. And so that was a big box store then. Our Skogen's IGA stores were, 25 to 35,000 square feet. And then when the festival format came to us, we're looking at, 55 to 75,000 square feet. And it's fortunate that it did, because back at that time, big stores got bigger. And with the smaller Skogen's IGA stores, we probably wouldn't have been able to grow. It's just not a size and a concept that had a growth potential to it. So from, that fortunate situation of our wholesaler saying, we're starting this, us saying, okay, let's try it. We just grew from that concept. And we have, I think, 42 festival stores now. And believe it or not, as I just said, the smaller format wasn't something we could grow. Well, we've started over the last 3 years buying smaller stores again and leaving them branded as they are. They're usually in small cities where there's one store, and, they need a grocer, and a lot of people are looking to get out. So we've stepped in and bought those stores. So we've gone from the small store to the big store, back to the small store. So
and do you think you'll ever fold those back into the Festival Foods brand, or keep them separate?
I don't think so. They don't offer everything, we can in a bigger store is really the main reason. And they're older stores quite often. And, if somebody had shopped a Festival Food store and walked into one of these smaller stores, they would say, this isn't a festival. Other than the fact that we can create a great culture in there with great people. I mean, They should be getting that we can replicate.
Right. So back to, your grandparents and uncles starting this grocery store, this first grocery store. I mean, do you remember your grandparents? Were you, or did they pass away before?
My grandpa passed away when I was 6 years old.
Okay.
So didn't know him very much. And it's good that he started things. So my dad, I don't think he ever thought of doing anything different, and neither did I. I got asked that question a lot when I was younger.
I was curious about that, whether
you think about anything else. And it was kind of stumped me. I mean, it was usually asked by if I was speaking to high school age or college age, kids. And obviously they're wondering, how did you figure out what you wanted to do? But it was never a doubt for me. And I learned later, somebody said to me, if you want your kids to work in the same career and field that you do, you're going to want to go home to the dinner table and speak highly of your day. Those that go home and complain about their job and say it stinks, your kids are sitting there going, well, I don't want to touch that. I think I grew up and grocery was fun. Like my dad being able to ride his bike in the store. My sister and I would go to the store during the day, not in school, and play. We'd build forts in the back room, climb on top of coolers. We were asked to, stock the beer cooler or something like that. But it was our playground. Wow. And I think that's really why there was never a doubt that's what I wanted to do.
And so what was the first job you had as maybe a teenager or high school, like a paid job working in the store?
Yeah, I would have been at our Skogen's IGA stores. And back in those days, again, this shows you how long ago it was, we'd carry groceries out to people's cars. It wasn't parcel pickup. You just walked out to their car and loaded their car. And so I was a bagger, and that's what we did. We'd walk out and load up cars. And then the other, time where I really had a job was, it was our first festival store. It was 1990. I was in college, and the frozen dairy manager quit. And so my dad asked if I would come and run the frozen dairy department. I look at that now, and if we tried to do that to somebody, it wouldn't work, So I just went in there and tried to figure things out for the summer and ran the department. So that was a pretty cool experience.
That's great. So where in this whole process did you, and maybe it was your father or maybe it was you, sort of crystallize this idea that the experience that you wanted to create for your guests, as you call them, was a differentiator, was something that you really wanted to focus on? Like, where did that come from?
I probably trace it all the way back to my grandpa in some ways. Grocers back then, I tell this story to new associates that they were kind of the hub in a city. They counted on their grocer, a community did. And, to give back or to be the place that was a meeting place for people. It wasn't social media to figure out what everybody's doing. You see them at the grocery store. And there's one story that was told to me a long time ago about giving back and being good to people. Unlike this, that my grandpa from time to time would forgive people's charge accounts. And back then it was a charge box at the cash register where the cashier would write down what somebody's order came to on a triplicate form. And then at the end of the month, they'd pay for the groceries. Well, if somebody was down on their luck, somebody in their family died, they lost a job or whatever, he'd go into the file box, take their charge slip and rip it up and throw it away.
Wow.
So I think my dad first told me that. And it was probably 10 years later that somebody who'd worked for us for a very long time told the same story. So I knew it was true then. It wasn't just my dad, kind of telling a good story.
Wow. And so you had this view of taking care of people, and that was really important to you. And yet somehow that translates into a focus on culture and creating, not just treating people that way, but creating an experience in the store that makes, I know we'll talk about the Boomerang Basics and the idea of the Boomerang principle, wanting people to come back. But where did that come to you? That okay, if we're going to create that, we're going to have to be more purposeful about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure there was one point. It was just that my dad understood it and believed in it. That we always use is that, we talk about the fact that we sell a commodity. Really, we're in the relationship business. You can get these groceries anywhere, basically.
Yeah.
And so what's going to be different about us? It's going to be the experience in the store, the people that care. We have countless examples of people that talk about, I walked into your store having a terrible day. Somebody died or bad day at work, and somebody in the store was friendly and made them laugh, made them smile, and it turned their day around. Stuff like that, that's, very special. I don't know that many people walk in a grocery store and say, oh my gosh, this is the best. Here we go. This is Disney World. Let's just run around here and bop into people, hunt for things, load a card, unload a card, take it home. I mean, it's a chore. Vast majority don't like it. So can we make it better than they expect when they come in the store?
Huh. And when did you come up with the phraseology of the boomerang principle? Explain for our audience what the boomerang principle is.
Yes, it is. Every business decision we make is based on one question: will it bring the guest back? So my dad actually stole the idea from Fergal Quinn from Ireland, who had that philosophy and had it on his walls in his store. And my dad asked him, would it be okay if I stole this idea and took it to the U.S.? And he said, sure. And when my dad first did that, I know that many of us were like, he's putting boomerangs up on things and putting them on our grocery bags. And I know that we thought to ourselves, this is really strange. I don't know why. Number one, you got this idea from a guy from Ireland. Boomerangs are Australian or New Zealand, so nothing was making sense. Little did any of us know how it resonated with our guests. They understood. And when we screw up, they will say, where's the boomerang on that one? You didn't bring me back with your decision that you made. So it resonates with guests more than I thought it would. And the idea there is basically you're making decisions that might not be financially great for you right now. There's not a ROI on it, but it's going to be good for our guests. We find ourselves doing remodels and replacement of cases way ahead of when we would need to, but we want to have a new looking store with all the best bells and whistles, things we can do to make shopping better and easier for our guests. So, in a bigger corporate atmosphere and a publicly traded company, they have to answer to shareholders that want their returns. And so sometimes they can't make decisions that are going to be best for their guests. They're making what's best for the people who own the company. And so we've been fortunate to, not have those shackles around us when we make decisions.
And it brings them back. And in the long run, there is a return on investment in the long run, just not in the short run. Some of our guests may remember the interview I did with Horst Schulze, the founder and longtime CEO of Ritz-Carlton, who of course are legendary for guest services. And I remember Horst telling me that it frustrates him when he sees, he's an older guy, he's in his 80s, and like some older people, he gets frustrated with the younger generation. Of course, all of us are younger compared to him, but he talked about how so many young people coming out of business school are so focused on the numbers and they are trying to drive cost out of things, and it diminishes service and diminishes the results. And he's always had this view, much as you're describing, that if we take care of our guests, the numbers will take care of themselves. We will make more money. We will have financial results if we put our focus first on take care of the guests, make the guests want to come back. And it sounds like that's, really your philosophy.
Right.
So, for our audience sake, we talk about the boomerang principle at Festival Foods, and Festival Foods has a set of principles that we at CultureWise help them to develop called the Boomerang Basics. And it's something that they practice. So talk a little bit about, Mark. So when you heard about the idea of what we call fundamentals and you call the Boomerang Basics, like what caused you to say that made sense to me and we should do something like that? And what was the origin of that for you?
I think that Kirk Stoa, our EVP, had either heard a presentation by you or was with a company that had created their own fundamentals. And so had you come in and present to us on the idea, and it all made sense on the surface, to kind of boil down what is your culture, put them into, in our case, 27 basics, Boomerang Basics. And over time, you can see that it is truly a playbook. They're actionable items, as compared to our mission statement and our values. Okay, that's great. That's your value. Now what do you do with it? This is easy to understand, and it's a way to immediately show a new associate, for example, what matters around here. And it's interesting, as I've thought about it over time, that it is our playbook and it's out there. It's on our website. Somebody can read what matters to us and what we're trying to do. And we don't hide it, because you can write anything on paper. But if you don't execute on those things, then it is just words on a page. And so we try and call out when somebody hits on a basic and does very well and celebrate that to reinforce the behavior. Or if we are missing the mark on something, we can refer to what we believe in and why aren't we there? What can we do to improve?
Yeah. And so, as I understand it, I think Joel had sent me an email that you're doing a 10-year anniversary now, right? Of practicing. I think you're.
I was trying to remember. I was going to guess 15, but only 10.
I think he had sent me. I think that they were throughout the stores doing some kind of a 10-year anniversary celebration. So 10 years of practicing the Boomerang Basics. And so, describe for the audience. So, unlike many of our clients who practice weekly, as we call them, fundamentals, Mark and Festival Foods team practices one each day and scrolls through them every 27 days. So talk about what happens. What does that mean if you're on number 16 today? What's happening in the stores to focus on the Boomerang Basic of the day?
Yeah, today was number 27 here,
Okay.
and it's the easiest one to remember. Keep things fun.
Nice.
So we have a huddle in our stores and in our office. At the stores, they will do it with the management team at about 9:00 in the morning. So that's probably can be up to 15 people, and they will read the basic and they will talk about an example of where it's happened and where we're good at it, and then ask for feedback from the rest of the group. Was there anything that you'd like to add or you've seen happen recently to match the basic? And from there, they go back to their departments. So if I'm the deli manager, I go back there and I might have 15 people working, and we get together and again, do the basic.
Mm-hmm.
And in those huddles, we also will talk about things that are important today. It's going to snow later. We might be busy early. So-and-so has a birthday. So-and-so got married, and really trying to make it a good communication time as well as reinforcing what we believe in our culture.
Mm-hmm. And so when you first introduced that, if you can remember 10 years ago, were people skeptical of, yes, I know our culture is important, but what do we do this every day? Or did people embrace it right from the beginning? Do you remember?
I don't remember that it was ever in much pushback because it is pretty simple to execute. I think it's getting in the habit of having the huddle every day and then talking about it. But he's busy and I have to go up here at 9:00 and, hang out for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the biggest thing. But other than that, what they're reading and talking about is not hard to understand. I think there's a lot of passion behind it when our team knows that, yes, this is how we act around here. This is what's important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a big win for us. I just like that it's a easy way to explain who we are to anyone.
Yeah. Yes. I remember a year or two, I guess it was last year, when I was at your festival college. That's what you call it, right? Where you bring the leaders together. And I sat at a table at breakfast with some of your various managers and supervisors from the stores, and they didn't know who I was. And so I thought it was a good chance just to ask them a little bit about the Boomerang Basics. And I asked a few people, so is this really important? Like, who cares? Is this kind of silly that you do this stuff? And I will tell you, they were pretty animated about how important this was to them and how much they loved it and the difference that it made. That it to them, it differentiated Festival Foods from other places they had ever worked. And they really appreciated the clarity of what it brought to them.
Right.
Which was,
it's a tool
nice
that they're given that is, again, easy to use. We give them a lot of tools, and some of them are complicated and don't work to perfection. This is just, talking about our beliefs.
So what are a couple of your favorite Boomerang Basics?
Well, keep things fun is a good one.
Sure.
We get stressed out in retail. Things just go wrong and get crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So today, the guy that was leading the basic did a really good one because he was an absolute goofball. It's National Candy Corn Day. So he had
Comes
candy
up with this
corn
stuff.
jokes and all that, and how many pounds of candy corn have been eaten in the past year and things like that. So I would say that's the favorite, but without right in front of me right now, sure. I would draw a blank. But most of them are cultural things, but we have one in particular that is about delivering results, so that we have to still hit our numbers in order to get the results we need. We have one that talks about the fact that we are a family. It's important, that we take care of one another. We attend funerals and weddings and celebrate birthdays. I think, unlike many businesses, we really get after that idea. Let's see. Just thinking of another that.
So talk about 10 tiling, because that one always sticks in my mind.
10 tiling is greeting anybody in the store who's within 10 floor tiles, and our floor tiles are 1 foot square. So somebody within 10 feet needs a hello, goodbye, how are you, excuse me. And during COVID, we did waves because we didn't want to be talking too much. So the idea there, and that's a very, believe it or not, difficult thing for people to execute on.
Really?
We have all ages that work in our stores. So in the case of a younger person, they might be more shy. And I have to say hi to that 60-year-old. That seems weird to me. But we stay after it. And the idea there is what you're doing is saying, hey, I'm here for you. If you need something, don't be afraid to approach me. As opposed to places you go where it's head down, don't bother me, I have something to do. Yes. You get that where you're like, I don't know if I'd want to ask that person anything right now because I'd be a pest. Yeah. So that's been very important to us.
And it is interesting how different that is in different places that you go. I think about, to me, it's fascinating when I look at industries like yours that are, well, so many are commoditized, and you look at where you see one company that does it consistently well and one company that doesn't. And an area that I think about like that, I think about convenience stores. And at least where I live, in a lot of the East Coast, I mean, I know there are convenience store chains that have grown that have been really successful. In the East Coast, we have one called Wawa that was headquartered in Pennsylvania. Every Wawa you go to, it's clean. The people are friendly. They make you feel like you're glad to be there. And I contrast those with, in my experience, almost anywhere in the country that I go to a 7-Eleven, it looks dirty and dumpy, and the people are unfriendly, and the place is disgusting. And it's just consistent everywhere you go. And I just find that so fascinating. And clearly, those companies like yours and like Wawa, that's not by accident that there's this consistent thing.
We have Quick Trip in our state, which is a pretty good company as well, much like Wawa. The offerings are great and the people are very nice. And I would say that anytime you create a very good culture with friendly people, it's harder to do because you have to convince people, that it's the right thing to be helpful, to, say those hellos. For whatever reason, human nature is just stay in a shell and not do those things. And, in our business, I mean, the easy stuff was putting stuff out on the floor and changing a price and scanning groceries, all that. That's table stakes, So I think a lot of companies, it would just be too much work for them to really say, this is how it will be and stay after that. And again, in our industry, we have so much turnover that you've constantly have to reinforce with the new people that this is how it is. But if you've got the good culture and the foundation, new people come in and they realize, well, I guess this is what we do around here.
Yeah.
You have to be good to one another as well.
Folks, that brings us to the end of the first part of our conversation with Mark Skogen, CEO and president of Festival Foods. In part 2 of this episode of Culture Architects, we're going to talk about the role that culture has played in Festival Foods' amazing growth and what role it played during the COVID pandemic. We'll also talk about the company's future and where the Boomerang Basics and the company culture fit into that as well. Make sure you stay tuned for that.
This has been Culture Architects with David J. Friedman. Join us next time for more insights and wisdom from great leaders in all walks of life. To book David for your next event or to learn more about his writing, speaking, or consulting, go to davidjfriedman.com. Culture Architects with David J. Friedman is a production of CultureWise.